Hey there guys, I am the Six Machine and welcome back to another Warhammer video. So today is the long awaited day. We have seen leaks and rumours and the forums and discords have been awash with hype and trepidation and excitement, but it is finally here. The brand new Balance Dataslate and Munitorum Field Manual have finally dropped. And boy oh boy, there is a lot of big news in this one. I will link them both down below, so please do go and take a look for yourselves, because there really is so much to look through and examine and see. And of course, we won't be covering anywhere near everything in this video. I'm just going to be taking a look at the Balance Dataslate and taking a look at a few key sort of items and peaks and changes that have me either the most excited or that I think are the most impactful on the game. So let's not waste any more time, let's dive right in. So on the Dataslate front itself, the first big thing that you may notice is that Armour of Contempt is gone. There is no more reducing AP for all of those power armoured factions or the Astra Militarum. That is now kaput. And to be honest, I'm glad. It was just, in my opinion, a confusing, long-winded, convoluted, annoying rule to try and remember, and more than anything just ended up adding way more time to your games trying to figure out all the pluses and bonuses and minuses for what you would actually be making a save on. Now, with the Guard Codex released, as well as the points changes that have come in the field manual, it has been rightly relegated to the warp, and long may it stay there. On the rest of the Marine front, however, there have been a few reasonably big changes that have replaced it. First of all, Marines now have the benefit of, for lack of a better term, sticky objectives. This is essentially a rule that allows you to grab an objective with a troops unit, and then you keep control of it even if you then subsequently move away. So until your opponent actually comes and claims it, it will always be your objective, even if you don't actually physically have any units on it in subsequent turns. So this means you can really easily cap your home objectives or the objectives in or near your deployment zone, and then move your troops off to go and contribute to other areas of the game, you know, killing things or charging things or just going towards other objectives, and you can still be racking up those victory points as the game progresses. So this is a really nice quality of lifestyle change, I guess, for the Marines. It will definitely help you to score higher and more consistently in games, especially as you start to lose units from your army, you know, as you get into sort of the later turns in the game when there is less sort of units to go around for both you and your opponent. You know that you will have some objectives that are relatively safe and will continue to score you points, even as both forces start to dwindle in size. The second big change is a change to the Doctrines ability. They have been updated, so the wording now states that you can change the Doctrine after the first battle round, not that you must. It is now no longer compulsory, so if you remember playing back in 8th edition, you could stay in your chosen Doctrine, so Devastator for example, for the entire game. They have now reverted to this style of mechanic for the Doctrines. You now no longer need to progress through them. So yes, you can very well choose to stay in Devastator Doctrine all game long, or move to Tactical in turn 2 and then stay in that for the rest of the game. It is a huge buff for armies that had either Devastator or Tactical related super Doctrines, or just armies that really wanted to make the most out of things like heavy weapons or rapid fire weapons or assault weapons. It really is going to help you play to the full strengths of your chosen chapter all game long now. So I think it is a huge buff for some chapters. Unfortunately, some of the melee chapters like Blood Angels and Space Wolves, it's largely not any different at all. But for my chapter in particular, Dark Angels, we absolutely love this change, because especially if you are doing a Ravenwing focused force, this means you can stay in Devastator all game long, and this means essentially you have an extra 3 inches of movement and the ability to advance and shoot all game now instead of just turn 1. Elsewhere, we see the Flickering Flames for Chaos Demons is now no longer auto-hitting like regular Flamers. They now use the model's ballistic skill, so with Chaos Flamers being ballistic skill 3+, you are now much less likely to just completely obliterate an enemy unit like you do with them now. Each Flamer goes from an average of 6.5 hits, as they are currently, to a much more manageable 4.3. So they're still very good, I think, for their points cost, but they will no longer be the absolute boogeymen of 9th edition that they have been up till now, and I think we will see them still quite regularly in demon lists, but maybe not quite as much as we have been seeing them. There are some very big changes to the poor Harlequins as well. In addition to the changes to their Luck of the Laughing God ability that they got in the last data slate, they've been hit again with a really quite significant nerf in that you now just flat out worsen the invuln save of each Harlequin model from their codex number by 1. So the army-wide 4-up invuln that all Harlequins had is now a thing of the past. Your toughness 3 1 wound guys will now only be protected by a relatively meager 5-up invuln instead. Whether this is the death knell for the clowns is yet to be seen. They are still fairly good, they've still got some really quite powerful data sheets, but essentially a 16% drop in the durability of what is already considered a quite flimsy army is definitely a big hit. They are now very much the epitome of a glass cannon, so whether this is going to completely cut them out from the meta, I don't know. I still think they will make some appearances, but we will probably see a lot less of them in tournaments and that kind of thing over the next few months. Conversely, we see some relatively nice buffs for the Custodes, whose previous limitation on their stratagems of Arcane Genetic Alchemy and the Emperor's Auspice have been changed. Whereas they were before once per game in the previous data slate, this has now been removed, so you can use this multiple times over the course of a game. That will definitely help to boost the survivability of your Golden Boys again and let you keep your Custodians alive over the course of 5 battle rounds instead of feeling like you are being forced to use those 2 stratagems in turn 1 just to try and withstand the barrage of enemy fire. So those are some very nice changes, and I think that will definitely help to keep the Custodes on a more level playing field compared to how they were from the last Balance data slate. They've also had the objective secured ability put back onto all of their core infantry, so this is going to make your Terminators a bit more viable again at taking objectives from your opponent. This is a change that I think should have never been made. It didn't really make sense to remove the obsec from things like your Terminators, so having that back is, I think, a really sensible and really good change and will allow your very small elite armies to actually play the objective game a lot more efficiently now, so I'm glad that's changed. The Custodes have come out quite well in this Balanced data slate. Whether it is enough to really push them back into the level of power they were before, I don't know, but they are certainly looking to be in a relatively good position again now. The Adeptic Mechanicus, another army that has really been struggling lately and has had arguably one of the biggest falls from grace in the entirety of 9th edition, had a very welcome helping hand. They had core added to their Cataphron Breachers and Destroyers, which is a nice addition. A lot of the AdMech stuff is very core focused, so allowing them to get the benefit of the various buffs and stratagems and abilities which are locked behind that keyword will certainly make them a lot better and give you a bit more of an attractive prospect in your troops choice in the AdMech. But then on top of that, the Bionics ability for the AdMech has also been changed. Instead of giving a rather meager 6-up invuln, which it did previously, this now grants you a 5-up invuln instead. So this is almost a much more friendly mirror to the Harlequins change. This grants everything from your Rangers to your Vanguard to your Dragoons to even your Servitors a very welcome 16% boost in their durability. And I mean, the AdMech have fallen quite far. I don't think this change alone is enough to completely save them, but it certainly is a step in the right direction and will hopefully make the AdMech a bit more relevant and appear a bit more often on the battlefields of 9th again. But I do think they still need a little bit more of a helping hand to really get back to a balanced and reasonable spot in the meta. Finally, for this video, we're going to talk about the Tyranids, and as I said, we will talk about the points in a future video. But suffice to say, out of all the armies, I think the Nids got the biggest battering when it comes to the points values, but in terms of the Balance Dataslate specifically, they also had a few relatively small but somewhat significant changes to their army as well. First up is the Overrun stratagem. This is now core locked, so you can no longer use this sneaky little trick on things like your Tyrants and that sort of thing. It is just your core units that can take advantage of this now. And then in addition to this, Spore Mines and Mucolids, which get created from things like your Biovores and your Harpies, are now no longer free. You have to spend reinforcement points on them. As the dev note says, these units cannot create Spore Mines for free. You are required to spend your reinforcement points to get them. So if you did want to take advantage of things like the Spore Mines to help block enemy movement and that sort of thing, you are going to have to plan ahead a little bit, maybe put some points aside to be able to do so. Whether that is going to be worth it in the grand scheme of things, I don't really know, but if you do want to go that route and take advantage of those tactics, you will have to actually put some points aside and as I said, plan ahead for doing it. As I said, just a couple of small but potentially significant changes in how you play your army, especially if you wanted to take advantage of those two tactics. But as I said, where the Nids really took their hit was in the new points costings, which we will cover in a future video. Overall, in terms of actual content, this has been a pretty hefty Balance Dataslate. There is still loads to dive into and dig around and examine, but these, as I said at the start of the video, are just a few of the things that really stuck out to me and which I think are arguably some of the biggest changes that will affect the game at the moment. We will talk about the points changes in a future video because there are some really huge things to cover in that as well, especially for things like the Tyranids and the Marines. But for now, that is going to be it. We covered a lot of things: the Space Marines, the Custodes, the Harlequins, the Tyranids. There are still other factions that have had changes, so as I said at the start of the video, do dive in and take a look yourself. But I would love to know what you think of this data slate. What are the changes that have impressed you the most or have made you the most worried? And do you think these changes are enough to bring the game into a better sense of balance? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.